So if you're just someone that's even been remotely involved in the debating or power scaling scene, you've probably heard of this guy's name before. Honest Voldigoad is very famous for being one of those solo your favorite verse type of characters. However, in the many different solo your favorite verse type of characters that I've seen, from Medaka to Dio over Heaven to Gilgamesh, I think Anos actually truly lives up to the hype of being able to solo your favorite verse, because not only does this guy have a whole Bible chapter of different abilities of what he can do, the quality of these abilities are so broken that I personally believe that if you gave any one of his abilities to a different character, they would instantly become a top tier threat in their respective verse. But then you gotta remember that Anos has all of those abilities for himself, so he is absolutely disgustingly broken, and we're definitely going to talk about him in today's video. However, this video is a bit special because we actually had somebody donate specifically for me to make this video, and I guess this is where I announced that if you want to see a specific character make their debut on this channel, because I'm definitely going to be making more content with Anos, we're going to pit him up against a whole bunch of different broken people. We're going to do Anos versus Sinbad, Gilgamesh, Yuha, you name it, we're going to pit him up against these different people. And if you want to see a character that you really want to see get covered, feel free to drop that donation and I'll get that video done. Now, with all that being said, let's get ready to dive into Anos Voldigoad, starting off with his AP/destructive capability. Now, Anos has quite a bit of just different varying ridiculous feats throughout the series, and he's definitely one of those characters that you can cheese into lower tiers to just go absolutely ruin somebody's day. First and foremost, one of his lower end feats is that he's fighting Kanon, you know, the hero, his main rival in the series, with a stick, by the way. Kanon has like an actual sword. He's fighting with a stick just to kind of prove that he's absolutely broken. And during this fight, it's described that the forest is destroyed, the lakes were dried up, he blew away all of the clouds, which you guys know in the Versus community, blowing away clouds is actually really strong because for whatever reason, people forget that clouds actually have mass, and the fact that he blew all of them away is absolutely insane. But then to top it all off, it says that he vanished a mountain. So he just evaporated a mountain on some Dangai Ichigo versus Ascended Ice and nonsense. And keep in mind, he did it with a stick. So at the bare minimum, you could put this dude at mountain level, but you could definitely get this a bit higher because vaporizing or vanishing a mountain is definitely a lot stronger than just blowing it up. But again, this is just the absolute low end that I just thought was really funny to bring up because he does it with a stick. If we move into the later parts of Season 1, we have this scene where Anos throws this giant meteor at a lake and completely evaporates the lake. Now, I was going to go ahead and try to count this because evaporating a lake like that is actually extremely powerful. In fact, if you're one of the people that watches the Bleach content on this channel, you would know this is actually one of Ichigo's better feats when he completely evaporates a lake just by raising his Zanpakuto toes. But here's the crazy thing about this. When Anos fires that attack, he actually mentions that he's like, oh yeah, I actually used that same attack while I was asleep and I accidentally vaporized a country. So this also means that Anos can just casually throw around attacks that are anywhere from country plus to large country, depending again how you calculate the size of the countries. And funny enough, it's an attack that he can just do in his sleep, which means it is giga casual for him to do. But then let's actually move into the actual serious feats that Anos is able to do. One of his more impressive showings actually does come earlier on in the series when he actually kills the God of Time, who, with a mere swing of their scythe, said they were going to rupture all of space-time, and Anos caught that attack with his bare hand. Now, at the bare minimum, this is a universal plus feat, because destroying all of space-time would mean you're going to be destroying the universal construct, and that places it a bit higher than just a universal feat, because when you start getting into the universal constructs, you start getting into the higher dimensional construct that contains the universe. And this is actually backed up by the fact that in the manga for this series, he says that his sword, which we'll get into later because his sword is basically its own other character, but he says that his sword is strong enough to destroy all of creation, including the universe, which, if you're someone a bit more well-versed in the Anos like light novels and everything, you will know that this guy gets up into like multiversal and higher tiers, and this already implies that he's going to be getting that higher because he says, oh, don't worry, I can destroy all of creation, meaning higher dimensions, the multiverse, and whatnot, but that also includes the universe you're in. Because that's kind of the way that Anos tends to talk. He'll be like, yeah, I'm gonna destroy the multiverse, but that's a bit too big brain for you. All you need to worry about is that I'm destroying your universe. It would be like if, say, Frieza in Dragon Ball's like, I'm gonna destroy the universe, but that's a too much big scale for you, so you just worry about your planet that's gonna get destroyed as a byproduct of that. So yeah, already starting off with AP, just going off what the anime already shows us, this dude is anywhere from mountain to country if you really want to lowball him and just beat up some lower tier characters for fun. I don't know why you'd want to bully people like that, but you can do it. But then you can also bring him into tiers where he's going to be universal to universal plus, in which case he's still probably going to dominate because, as we'll get into when we get to his abilities at the later parts of this video, this man is absolutely busted in what he can do. Speed is actually really easy to get into with Anos because you could kind of lowball him to FTL because there's some light-based magics in his show, but it's really not all that serious. My man can just walk and move and stop time. I mean, I already mentioned earlier that he was fighting the God of Time, and the God of Time is like, well, I'm just going to stop time and try to kill you, to which Anos said, I don't really care about that, I'm just going to keep vibing and stop time. But it gets a bit more insane than that because Anos actually does some forms of time traveling in the show by sending himself back in time, himself forward in time, sending other people back in time, showing that he not only is demonstrating some abilities for infinite speed of moving and stop time, but he's also demonstrating immeasurable speed by completely being unbound by space-time, which he does actually mention, and so it kind of makes sense that he would just be in this immeasurable speed tier if he's completely unbound by time itself. This also just becomes more concrete the later on in the show that you go, as he will later fight against, and forgive my pronunciation of this, but Age's Code Crimson Blood Magic Spear, which is said to also transcend space-time as well, so not only is he fighting the God of Time, who has complete control over all of time, he's unaffected by time itself, he moves and stops time, he time travels and sends other people forward and backward throughout time. To say that this man is not in the infinite immeasurable speed tiers would be a bit ridiculous with his showings. I mean, I think the absolute lowest you can pin him in would be infinite speed, because maybe you don't bind to the immeasurable speed thing, but again, literally unbound by time is moving forward and backward in time. And for those of you that are not as familiar with what these speed tiers mean, let's just break it down real quick. You have any amount of finite speed, like let's say you're going 30 miles per hour, moving at the speed of lightning, moving at the speed of light, 1,000 times the speed of light. These are all examples of moving at a finite speed. Then you reach infinite speed, which is literally infinitely faster than any finite amount of speed. But you can actually take it a step further than that with inaccessible speed, which basically is based off the concept of inaccessible cardinals. An inaccessible cardinal is basically something along the lines of, we have infinite plus 1, or infinite to the squared power of infinity plus infinity, right? Like any amount of infinities you can start meshing around with each other or adding things to infinities, that's all inaccessible speed. Immeasurable speed is where you take all of that, all the finite and infinite values you can possibly pull together, and you throw them all out the window because it literally can't be measured by any metrics. Because usually at that point, you are just completely unbound by the concepts of space, time, and speed and all that stuff, that it really doesn't matter for your character. And that's where Anos is kind of vibing at right now. But now we actually get into the fun stuff. I've tried to compile all of his different abilities into similar areas, but just keep in mind there are so many things that he's able to do that this is going to get a little bit crusty. So just try to follow along with me as we go over all the different abilities that he has. So first and foremost, there's the fundamental idea that Anos is a misfit from fate and is therefore labeled as the misfit, as the name of the show entails. And so not only is he a misfit from fate, but he also states that if he finds a bad fate, or something is fated to happen that he doesn't like, he would merely just destroy said fate. So first and foremost, just right off rip, he is immune or unbound by fate and destiny. Anos is a magician. What is magic in the world of the Misfit universe, right? Well, magic is made of the soul, spirit, and even deeper than that, it's made of your source. The source is basically the concept that makes up who you are. It is a conceptual ideal. It is a very fundamental thing in the entire series and is quite literally a conceptual thing. Keep that in mind because Anos does a lot of crazy things with the conceptual source. But also keep in mind that magic is also made of spirits and souls, so he can also interact with ethereal/ghost beings. Like I mentioned earlier, he has the ability to rewind time in specific or large areas. One of the better examples that I mentioned earlier is that he sent his 2 female other characters back in time to fuse their sources together to prevent them from dying. And then, as I also mentioned, because of this, he's also unbound by time itself. He can also use this on his opponents, as he also used this time-based ability to BFR someone's mind through time. If you don't know what BFR is, it stands for Battlefield Removal, and it's a win condition in a lot of debates where you're fighting somebody. It's essentially kind of like sealing somebody away, because you essentially put the other person in a position where they can't come back to fight you, because you basically just say lock them in a room or something and they can't escape from that room, so you just basically win by default because they're not able to fight you anymore. And so what he does is he takes your mind and he throws it through time, and you basically just kind of become a husk of your former self because your mind is now 1,000 million bajillion years in the future, so good luck doing anything without your mind. He also has just insane healing abilities, I guess is what we'll call this category, because he can revive people from a mere drop of their blood. But not only that, he can choose how you're revived. He can either completely revive you as per usual, he can revive you even stronger than you were, he can just completely change your biology, as he had this pretty racist teacher early on in the show that tried to attack his mom, and she was a pure blood demon. When he killed her and revived her, he revived her as a half-blood demon. Quite literally, Anos was like, he found some white dude, killed him, and revived him as a Vietnamese guy. It's absolutely insane. But not only that, he can revive people as the undead, as even early on in the show when he kills this man Zeppes, he actually revives him as a zombie and makes him stronger than his brother. But this actually isn't even where the healing stuff ends. You'd think that's already crazy enough, but he actually revives his buddy Ivis after he completely destroyed his source. So basically, he completely eradicated somebody's concept and still brought them back to life. This also obviously means that he's able to seemingly heal his allies nigh instantaneously, and even if he has no knowledge on that person's biology, for instance, when he tries to heal Kanon's new mom when he reincarnates, who is a spirit and has different biology than demons, and he has no idea how to heal some weird spirit disease, he just creates a new formula and cures her right on the spot. Obviously, these healing abilities extend to Anos himself because he can continue to reincarnate and regenerate even if his source is destroyed. So usually in this series, if your source is still intact, you can still revive, right? As long as your concept exists, you can keep regenerating, as long as you're a decent mage. But because Anos is absolutely cracked beyond belief, he can regenerate himself and reincarnate himself even if his concept is completely destroyed. Speaking of his source actually protects his mind and soul as well, because if his mind and soul are tampered with, his powerful source, his concept, will prevent them from being affected. It's absolutely dummy insane. Funny enough, on that note, if Anos were to unsuppress his magic, it would release this massive fear aura around him that would cause other people to actually just instantaneously die as a defense mechanism of their own bodies. Their bodies would rather just completely kill themselves than even be in the presence of his magic. So his fear hacks is absolutely insane, and this also means that he's not ever just really releasing all of his magic at once, because everybody would literally just die. Speaking of that fear hacks, Anos' magic and his fear hacks is so good that he can actually scare the source of what his opponent is to prevent their abilities from working. So, for instance, he wouldn't put the fear into Ichigo, he would put the fear into like who Ichigo is and what Ichigo's Ryotsu is, so Ichigo's Ryotsu wouldn't function. He basically shuts down every power system at a conceptual level by specifically targeting the power source itself and not the person, which is insanely broken. It's a very nuanced way of using a fear hacks, and it's extremely effective. Speaking on his ability to heal and create life and everything, he actually created his 7 demon emperors from his own blood, so if he's ever being pressed and just ever needs backup for whatever reason, he can just create all of them at the flick of a wrist or just with a small pin drop of his own blood. He can also create things out of nothing as well, as he created this little snow globe for Misha, and he says that he literally created the atoms for that object out of nothing, which makes sense because, as we'll get into later with Anos, he's completely unbound by all laws as well. You know, conventional science would tell us that we can't really just make something out of nothing, but Anos says, screw that, I have magic. He also has the Goku ability of being able to read minds, as when his friend Ivis was basically being mind hacks by the other Anos Voldigoad. Won't spoil too much if you actually want to go watch the series for yourself, but he just reads his entire mind and his past history, so if there's anything specific he needs to know about his opponent, he could just put his hand on them and be like, oh, now I know literally everything about you. He says that the same magic won't work on him twice, but that also doesn't mean it would have worked in the first place, because he says this in response to when some goons tried to throw 1,088 different magics at him. And so Anos basically says the same thing won't work on me twice, but that doesn't even mean it'll work in the first place, as we can obviously outline with all the abilities we've just gone over. Funny enough, he can actually directly interact with the source of others, and I mean literally can directly interact with it physically. He actually grabs people's sources, meaning not only can he interact with souls, concepts, spirits, minds, rumors, and stories, because all of those things are what a source is made out of. So again, if it is a soul, mind, rumor, story, concept, he can grab any of those and directly just crush it if he wants to. And then if that was all just not broken enough, he can share his abilities with other people. So yeah, it's literally like, you pull up on my crew, I just give them all of my abilities, and then we just stomp the living daylights out of you. But we're not actually done, because I haven't got to talk about his sword yet, which I know I'm probably going to butcher this. What is it? Venuzdonoa? We're just going to call it Venezuela the sword, or maybe we'll just call it the sword. I don't know. I can't really pronounce it. But basically, this thing is like a sidekick to him. Like, it's a whole other list of abilities. And let's just go ahead and talk about this thing. First and foremost, when he first reveals the sword, he says that anyone who has seen this sword before has had their source completely destroyed, so just confirmation that the sword can completely eradicate somebody's concept. During his battle against Ivis, when he kind of becomes the god of time, we learned that it inflicts wounds upon people that even if you rewind time, they can't heal. So the wounds themselves are like acausal, and that they just will always remain on the person unless you have some odd way of directly healing them, i.e. just having Anos heal them himself for you. And then also it obviously obliterated Ivis when he was the god of time and, you know, destroyed him source and all, the source being akin to, again, the god of time's concept got destroyed by this sword. In his fight against Melhaze, we actually learned that he can cut the target even if the sword misses, because this sword completely disregards all laws, all of them, on some Daisai nonsense. Not just like, oh, it ignores the laws of, like, space and time. It's like, no. All laws. Nothing is bound by this thing. So it's like the pinnacle of law manipulation, as it can just completely disregard all of those. And another example is that he was able to cut numerous portals with one swing, again, kind of disregarding all conventional laws. And again, just to reiterate, it destroys and disregards all laws, right? Like, let's just make sure that's clear. The reason this is kind of notable is that in the final fight against, I won't spoil who, the sword is able to fight against the person that becomes the new world order, the new embodiment of a new set of laws, but the sword rewrites the laws of the new world order so it still functions normally. Basically meaning you cannot use law manipulation on this guy. Law manipulation is very close to things like rule manipulation, conceptual manipulation. It's kind of like that high tier of an ability, and it's just generally absolutely broken. And just think about it this way, this all comes from the anime, just the first season of the anime. There's a second season coming out in the fall, and if you guys want me to update this video when we get season 2, I'll be glad to do so. Just make sure you leave a like on the video, you subscribe to the channel, and leave me a comment down below of what you think about the boy Anos Voldigoad. I am really looking forward to see a lot of people running around with this character now, not just kind of knowing what he can do, and just obliterating people in debates, because you can use him in pretty much any tier. I mean, even if you could have him fight higher tier characters. Like, even though in the anime, he's like comfortably universal, you can bring him up against higher tier characters and they just won't be able to kill him. Because there's not a lot of characters that can put somebody down that regenerates from their concept being destroyed, and they're also immune to all laws. If anybody here plays Yu-Gi-Oh, this guy is literally just Final Sigma being slapped down on the board and just saying like, yeah, do something, bro. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed that video. Again, if there's any character that you would like me to cover in particular, you can either donate on stream or you can come to the Discord and I have a donate link for people that want specific videos. But yeah, this one was definitely a doozy to do, but I really enjoyed doing it. So I almost look forward to people being like, hey, do this random character. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'll look into this guy, and then it's like, oh man, this guy's actually like really fun in a broken way. And I hope you guys are also looking forward to this man fighting a whole host of different broken characters. I'm actually really looking forward to the Sinbad versus Anos video, because after everything that I went through with Anos, Sinbad actually still stands somewhat of a chance, so I think it'll be a really fun video to do. Hope you guys are looking forward to that in all future projects. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace, late guys.